Hey everybody, in this video we're going to go ahead and take a look at some selected vertebrae from different regions of the spine. So we'll take a look at one vertebrae from each region. So let's go ahead and start with C4. Here it is. We'll go ahead and highlight some of the basic structures first. So here is the body. Let me get rid of the green color. Here is the body, followed by the pedicles, followed by the transverse process right here. Now, the transverse process is a little unique in the cervical region for a couple of reasons. First of all, we have two tubercles. So this right here is the anterior tubercle, and this right here is the posterior tubercle. So we have two different tubercles. And then in addition to that, we have a transverse foramen for the vertebral artery. Let's go ahead and look at the articular facets so we can verify that we're looking at the top by taking a side view, and we see that the spinous process slopes downward, so we can go ahead and confirm that these are the superior articular facets of the C4 vertebrae. And then if we go ahead and flip it over, we can see the two inferior facets. Then if we go back up top, we can label the lamina. Oops, sorry about that. Those are the lamina. And then we have our bifid spinous process, a spinous process with these two distinctly separate processes almost sticking out of it. So it's called the bifid spinous process. Like all vertebrae, we have a vertebral canal. And then one thing that's unique about this particular vertebra and some other cervical vertebra is this groove. So you can see this groove pretty well here. It's different from other vertebrae that have an inferior vertebral notch and a superior vertebral notch. This is a really distinct groove, and this groove is for the C5 spinal nerve. So the C5 spinal nerve exits the spinal cord there and comes out. You know what? We might be able to do something here with any luck. We might be able to add in the nervous system. Oh boy. Oh yeah, well there we go. There's the C5 spinal nerve right there. It's wrapped in dura mater, but so you can see it sort of coming out of that groove. And that's it for C4. Let's go ahead and look at T5 next. So here it is. Now I won't highlight everything again unless it is particularly unique. So here's the body. We're used to being able to find a body. And then the two peduncles. I will circle the peduncles really quick. And then they continue around the bottom as well. It's that whole pillar. So this whole pillar of bone that connects the body to the rest of the structures, those are the peduncles, two of them. Transverse processes, here and here. Costotransverse facet, here. And then we have two costovertebral demifacets. So here's the superior costovertebral demifacet and the inferior costovertebral demifacet. Those are for articulations with the ribs. Here we can see the superior articular facets that articulate with the vertebra above. And then we can see the inferior facets below. All right, now a little different from our last vertebra, we have intervertebral notches on the thoracic vertebrae. We have an inferior intervertebral notch, and we have a superior, I'm sorry, not intervertebral notch, but vertebral notch rather. So we have a superior vertebral notch and an inferior vertebral notch. If we bring everything back in here, hopefully we can get to it, we can see that those two notches together form a foramen. And I know this is going to be kind of crazy, but if we bring the nervous system back in, we can see the spinal nerve coming out of that foramen. So those two notches together form an intervertebral foramen. But individually, we call this the superior vertebral notch, and we call this the inferior vertebral notch. They fit together to make an intervertebral foramen. All right. Let's just go back to T5. We have lamina left. So here is a lamina, and here is lamina. And then we have the spinous process. Here sloping really steeply downward in a vertebral canal. I don't know if you saw the other video where I talked about the cervical vertebrae looking like a fox and the thoracic vertebrae looking like a giraffe. You can kind of see the giraffe, I think, there. And then if we look at a cervical, this one you have to use a little bit more of your imagination, but maybe that looks like a fox to you. These superior facets are so pronounced in this app that it looks more like a bug or something. And then the lumbar vertebrae, which we're going to go ahead and go to next, we'll go to L3. Oops. Looks like a moose. The lumbar vertebrae look like a moose. Anyway, that's just a quick way you can sort of tell them apart. There's a lot of other distinctions as well. Let's get this centered here. Okay, let's go ahead and run through these structures really quick. Here's the vertebral body. Here are the pedicles. Here are the superior articular facets, lying roughly in the sagittal plane. Here are the inferior vertebral facets. Inferior articular facets, lying roughly in the sagittal plane as well. Then we have a new structure, not terribly pronounced again on the app. There's small structures in real life as well, but there are pretty distinct little lumps of bone radiating kind of superiorly, posteriorly off of the superior articular facets. So here's one, and here's the other. Those are called the mammillary processes. Mammillary processes. And with any luck, we'll see. We should be able to see an accessory process as well. Not really. Again, these are very tiny on real bones, so we'll go ahead and draw them in right here. They're sort of there. You can tell they kind of went through some effort maybe to raise that up a little bit. I don't know. But those are called accessory processes. Like the thoracic vertebrae, we have superior and inferior vertebral notches. So here is the superior vertebral notch, and here is the inferior vertebral notch. And like the thoracic region, these fit together to form intervertebral foramens for our spinal nerves. Then we have a two lamina. And a spinous process. and a vertebral canal, which is triangular in the lumbar region. All right, let's go ahead and look at the sacrum now, which is actually 5 fused vertebrae, although it functionally is one bone. And let's start by labeling the sacral bodies. So even though it's fused, it's still pretty easy to make out the bodies. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 sacral bodies. You can see that there's a pretty distinct lip here on the top of the first sacral body. This forms a part of your this forms a part of your pelvic brim. So if I were to add everything back in, you can see that there is this brim in your pelvis. That sacral promontory forms part of that. That's why it has its own name and why it's relevant. So there it is, sacral promontory. Then you have superior articular facets to articulate with the inferior articular facets of L5. So there's one and there's the other. Those are superior articular facets. And then you have something called the sacral ala, or wing, which is right here. All right, now this next structure is called the auricular surface because it kind of looks like an ear. I don't know if you agree. It kind of does, actually. Auricle means ear, so that's where it gets this name. This is the auricular surface. You have a left and a right. If you've ever heard of your SI joint, your sacroiliac joint, this forms one half of it. So if we bring that back in, you can see this joint here. And actually, this structure right here that it articulates with is also called the auricular surface. So both sides of the joint are called the auricular surface. Anyway, let's bring the sacrum back. So auricular surface, auricular surface. That brings us to these foramina. So the foramina, when we're looking at them from the front, we call these the ventral foramina. Ventral is kind of an old word from animal anatomy. They're anterior, so that's fine too, but you can call them anterior foramina. But typically they are called ventral. And then on the back, they're referred to as dorsal foramina. Oops. And these are places where sacral nerves are able to exit. All right. And then while we're here on the posterior view, we can see a few structures. We can see where the spinous processes have fused. We see this ridge. That ridge is called the median crest. And then lateral to that, just slightly over here, we have the lateral crest. And then in between those two ridges, we have something called the intermediate crest. Right here, that's the hardest one to see. And then lastly, we have the sacral hiatus or the sacral canal. So you can see it from the bottom or from the top. That is the sacral canal or sacral hiatus. All right, and that brings us to our last bone, the coccyx. The coccyx is 3 to 5 fused vertebrae. It looks like they've fused about 4 here. There's only a few structures that we're going to label on this particular bone. First, we have the articular facet. There we go. We have the articular facet with the S5 body. Then after that, we have the transverse processes here and here. And lastly, we have the cornua, which is another name for a horn. I'm not sure if that's Latin or Greek or what, but these two little horns are called the cornua. And that is it. Thank you for watching this video, guys. See you next time.